Choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Join me in my journey as I learn the mechanics and wiring of an RV furnace as I try to repair mine for next to nothing. Hi J&K, what have I been working on today? Well, yesterday I got the lawnmower running again. The battery had gone dead after I filled it probably with too much water. So I ended up running me some cables off of the 12 volt converter in the RV and hooking it up to the battery. Ended up charging it up for 3 or 4 hours, getting it topped off and put it in the lawnmower and it started up. Then got me some thing to listen to, got in the mood, and I went ahead and got back onto my RV furnace. It never really worked, I don't believe, when I got it, or maybe it did and then it stopped working right away. And it would appear that the biggest problem turned out to be right here. These wires that run underneath it over to this switch right here burned up and shorted out. And I'm not sure why that happened, but I did notice another big problem. These holes. Did these holes blow out hot air and blowing that out, or did these happen in the 3 or 4 years, 5, 6? Heck, I've had this thing forever now, but did that happen after this happened? When I was, cleaning and scraping it. I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. Either way, I think that was the initial failure, was the wires going to this switch. So I completely tore this thing down because this thing was full of rust flakes and junk. I think there's even found a hornet nest up in here. Just wasn't sure if the motor was going to work, so I went ahead and pulled it out and oiled it up on both ends, took the circuit board out, and just, like I said, had it completely knocked down. I mean, every screw out of this thing. Had that bucket half full of screws. Not really, but no kidding when I say I think I counted 10 or 11 of these, 15 or 20 of these. So anyway, now let's explain how this goes on. I'll show you some of the pictures I took as I was taking it apart, but basically the idea is there's a big burner right here. There's a little outlet right here that pushes gas into it. There's a little, really, it's only about this big to be this wide to be honest with you, but a centrifugal fan in there. That draws air in here and pushes it up into this direction here. This goes into that big burner, and as that goes and the gas expands, it forces it out that direction, because I was thinking that this was going to move a lot more air through it, but it really doesn't. I think this doesn't actually pressurize this as much as just feed this thing oxygen and start the direction for the travel. Anyway, this heats up and it's almost like a jet. Pushes it through this thing here, and then into this chamber, and then through this half piece, and then all right, there we go, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then out through here. And by the time it comes out of here, it's usually, at least everyone I've noticed before, coming out, at quite a high rate, pressure. Like I said, it's when I ran this thing right now, there wasn't much pressure coming out of here, and it was almost indifferent. So it was kind of worrisome. But I think it's just because it's not lit and it's not heated up. Anyway, so those holes in this thing are, right here, almost at the end of where the air's coming all the way out. So it's real hot here, and by the time it gets down here, it's getting cooler. Now, here's another one of my theories as to this thing here. Maybe the gas wasn't pushing through there at first. Maybe this thing was just built up with all that rust and started getting clogged up and started overheating. But then that would trip the switch and shut it off. I don't know. But anyway, either way, when I had this thing all tore apart, I completely cleaned this thing out the best I could. There's nothing else shaking, rattling around. You know, vacuumed it out. Just went from top to bottom. But there's holes in the bottom. May just completely ruin this thing. Because this is going to be, you know, toxic air, toxic gas, so to speak, coming out of there. Plus it might cause the same problem with the overheating the bottom of this. So I'm thinking JB Weld, because it said, if it was like right over here or something, no way, but way on down there at the very bottom, JB Weld I might be able to get away with it. Comment below and let me know. But anyway, look at all these wires, all these switches everywhere. Click, 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 click here. Even wires down there. I'll show you some other photos, pictures with everything taken apart. But anyway, kind of scary at first, but I figured it out, and let me break it down for you. All right. Now, this is what I was talking about. Looks like lots of wires, but let's just get a couple of things understood. This is all yellow and green and black grounding. Okay? So the most important thing to remember, this is ground wire. It's all kind of mouse chewed up and everything from way back when I had a rodent infestation. But it's the ground wire. So it comes in, puts the ground everywhere. That's the motor. This right here goes to the motor solenoid switch. This goes for the negative to the circuit board. And this goes to ground out negative, or basically negative polarize the pressure, the propane pressure relay feedback switches. Basically, that's one feedback, and then there's another switch over there. That's both feedback. So what I'm assuming is, and this goes just to the circuit board all by itself, and then the red wire comes up here, but it doesn't go to this power wire. Mind you. And this is where things get kind of interesting. So let's just assume though that this is power in, this is negative, and I believe what this is doing is this is grounded out, and when this and that are when both of these are pressurized, it contacts the ground to this brown wire, and when this detects that ground connect, it tells this thing, okay, it's indeed got gas, and everything else. Go ahead and it basically just tells itself that it's got gas. Okay, so now that goes back to this power wire here, why it's not always charged up. This wire goes to a switch by the centrifugal fan, and it's literally operated by the ventilation. When the fan is running and it's got air pressure, it moves that little switch right there. And when it stops, the fan isn't running, or something's blocking it or whatever, there's not enough air moving past it, and it rests back, springs back, and shuts off. Okay, now that wire is what goes to the circuit board. So if this fan isn't blowing air across this thing here to heat it up and put it into the interior, then the circuit board won't power up. Okay, so that explains why the next two wires we'll get to is the thermostat wires, and all it is just when it's cool enough, contact, when it's warm enough or off or set to off, it opens. Okay, so we'll just assume for now that we want it on. Thermostat is too cold or whatever, thermostat closes. That closes. What that does, goes over here to the motor relay switch, which is where the actual positive to the battery connects. Okay, so the positive comes in and goes out to the thermostat at the same time. Okay, so when this positive comes back through this thermostat wire, it goes into the solenoid, mind you. Not actually straight to the motors. It's actually connecting the battery to the motor through the solenoid. That's one of the reasons why it needs a ground, is to be able to do that switching. So anyway, the other thing it does, when the thermostat gets 12 volts, it sends the 12 volts through this wire over to that thermal sensor in the interior exhaust setting or setup, and so that's simultaneously. So it comes back, it'll turn on the motor, click, and at the same time, the wire's coming back through this black wire into this fan switch. So now this wire is activated as long as the thermostat and the battery's connected, thermostat gets connected, boom, now this switch is activated, the fan starts running because this switch is activated by the thermostat. So this thing here says yes, it's blowing air, click, now it's sending power to the circuit board. The circuit board's saying, okay, now I got power. It's checking the ground. As long as this thing's got pressure, it sends this signal back down to the ground, or back saying, yes, I got gas pressure. And then it says, okay, start the ignition cycle. It at that point, I believe the fan's running for about 30 seconds or so, and then it'll go ahead and tick this solenoid over to the igniter, and click, click, click. It'll turn on. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, yeah, I think I'm wrong. Okay. This isn't checking the ground. This is sending a positive signal with the ground to open these up to allow gas into here. That's what that is. These are on and off valves for the gas. Totally wrong about sensing pressure. Okay. Anyway, so that makes more sense. So anyway, so this turns on. This goes click, 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 click. And then this, I believe, would stay on. Now, at this point, how would it sense that it's actually lit without just keep on putting on gas? That's a really good question. I'm kind of wondering. So it goes shh, click, 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 it lights. That would all run good, but let's say it doesn't light. How would it know? Huh. Maybe that has something to do with these things here. Maybe it can tell if it's trying to draw gas or not. No, I don't think it has anything to do with that switch. I think that's just an override switch. Huh. You know, that's a good question. I'm going to have to figure that last little part out. How does it know if it's using the gas or not? Anyway, yeah, I got this off of a propane grill just to hook it up to a bottle and test it out and see if it works. Because if I hook this thing up and it all works, like I said, I'm going to talk to a few people and probably wait, I got another week or so till I can get some money together to spend to finish this up. But I'm going to see if I can patch that up. And the circuit board and that works. Boom, I got me a like 1500 BTU propane heater with thermostat ability. It runs off of 12 volts. And I think worst case scenario is this thing doesn't go pop, 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 pop. That's $100. And one of those, I didn't look up this exact model, but just a generic search for this part is about 170 right now. So for 270, these things run about no less than 450, but closer to 500 for a new one. So if I can fix it for some JB Weld, that would be awesome. Spend $100 for a circuit board, whatever, but I just sure hope I don't have to replace that part right there. Okay, and that whole assembly slides into this thing with the back and the outlets facing out, and then just that divider right about there, and then this whole chamber is just literally just this thing right here with the box around it, with that hole like that opening in the bottom in my model in particular, and all those other little holes all around it that you can open up to hook up heat vents with, ductwork with. These things I'm talking about. See what I'm saying? And mine in particular has a hole in the bottom because mine goes into a floor tray underneath the floor and then into floor vents or duct or whatever you call it. Anyway, so the idea is though is that this and that is where it's getting your air from inside to heat up, and it's getting atmospheric air from up here, pushing it through that heat thing, blowing it back out here, and then it's taking this air that it picks up here and then pressurizing this box here to push it out any openings you prefer. So coming over here, these are all the vents over here, the screens over here for the interior intake, and this is where it's actually pulling in the air from over here and in here. So, and then it's exhausting it right over here and just, see what I'm saying? So it's just pushing that air right over here and pressurizing this box. So as long as there's movement out this way, it'll flip that switch. If this is blocked off, if you don't have it, you know, if you install this thing without opening up anything, the air won't blow and it won't flip that switch and turn on the gases. But anyway, so with that air constantly blowing over here and those holes under here, and it having to go all the way around like that through there before it gets pushed out there, and so this is down in the last, you know, 25% of the travel, if even, because I mean look how thick this part is compared to these channels, and I'm guessing that's as the gases cool down they compress a little bit. That makes a lot of sense. So anyway, what do you think though? You think that by the time it reaches here, JBL to be fine? Because I've seen him use it on engine parts. You know, I guess from a safety perspective, it doesn't really matter if the propane doesn't shut off, if it doesn't light, because what I believe will happen is the propane will just get pushed out into the outside vent and into the atmosphere, will dissipate and won't really be an ignition danger, except I guess unless somebody were to like hold a match at the end of the the exhaust port. But again, it doesn't pressurize it that much, so I don't know. That's a good or bad thing. But anyway, the idea that I'm saying is it wouldn't be a big safety issue inside as much as just a waste, because what would happen is if it never got warm, it would never shut off, and it would just keep pushing the gas out the vent outside until the tank was empty, or you noticed it and shut it off. All right, now I can't wait till I can get a propane tank, hook it up, and give it a try and see if it's worth patching up the bottom of it and or looking into a new circuit board. All right, here we go. Let's see if this thing is gonna work. All right, just sprayed it all down with soap water, and I don't see anything bubbling or leaking too bad. Got the wires out away from the wires as best I can. So let's hook up the power and see what happens. Well, that's a no-go, my first try. Okay, so after all said and done, the only problem that I'm having now is the igniter isn't lighting. And it's that little circuit board right there. Just replace the whole thing and it should get working. Didn't see any propane leaks. Got a big old gush of propane gas out of this. Heard all the little valves and everything turning on and off like they're supposed to in the right timing. Just the igniter wasn't kicking and lighting it up. So that, fix those little rust spots right there. And I got me a big old propane furnace working. That's it. That's the culprit. That thing right there isn't firing. And if I remember correctly, 5 or 6 years ago when I first gave up on it, I remember that was a problem. Part of me was thinking it was all clogged up, and it probably still wasn't working too good.
Answer the phone, Joshua.